Minutes. Hello everybody, this is Sudha Jamthe and this is the IoT Show. We have a very special guest today with a unique topic that we have never touched upon. We are talking about hardware accelerators. But the beauty of this topic today is we have a guest who has actually lived in multiple continents and done IoT work in so many places. So without much ado, let me introduce you to Avinash Kaushik. Good morning. It's actually night for you in India. How are you?
Hi Sudha. I'm doing good.
So tell me about yourself on how you got your. I want a holistic background and how you got to IoT.
Well, I used to work for Verizon in US almost 2003, almost 15 years ago, and post that I worked with several development work in Africa and Latin America. I used to work with Pricewaterhouse and then World Bank, trying to help the African startups at the Ethiopia-based ICT incubation center.
I want to come back and hear about the Africa and Ethiopian scene. So tell me more about your background, how you got to this. So you've done Latin America. You've been here in US.
Yeah, just work. I'm from India. I am from Bangalore. It's the Silicon Valley of India, and happened to be working in US, and then again work brought me into Africa and Latin America and Southeast Asia, and across I have worked with a lot of startups and young companies, medium enterprises, as well as large companies. I work for conglomerates who have very who are listed publicly across continents and are very capitalistic. At the same time, I work with startups, trying to nurture startups through forums such as the IFC's own ICT center in Africa, and also several other initiatives in Southeast Asia and Latin America. So I've been fortunate to work with large companies as well as small emerging companies, trying to nurture them. So when I got back to India after having traveled across, so I saw that India had just started. This is almost like 6-7 years ago. India had the wave of the e-commerce companies coming in, and within a span of 2-3 years, the valuations kept on building, and then you have all the big players, the big investors and private equity companies here in India investing. Few of the companies have come here into India because they want to diversify, but a lot of people see this as a very growth oriented market, because nowhere in the world you get 1.2 billion people, out of which almost half of them use mobile phones and are connected to internet. So be it any emerging company in US wants to build valuation, India is a destination. And for many Chinese and Asian investors who made big money, India is again going to be a very good destination.
You surprise me, because we don't market for any one brand or anything. Now you're marketing for Bangalore and India here. Come back to IoT. What are you doing in Bangalore? What are you doing with your new revvx and the whole IoT accelerator? Tell me a little bit. Tell me what is your motivation, and then tell us what you do.
See, my motivation is working with startups, trying to create something, try to do something innovative and creative. But having worked with companies like Tata Group, I used to be with Tata Innovation. It's a 65 company, a large conglomerate, and $100 billion revenue. But again, it's not considered as innovative as Apple, right?
It is not in the technology space. The Tata Group does what? They do cars, they do manufacturing, they make steel, whole bunch of stuff. Right?
Yes. So traditional businesses, but again, Tata Group invests equal amount as much as GE invests in R&D, almost more than what Apple invests in R&D. But when you talk about innovative companies, I don't think you would list the Tata Group. So I have been in large companies where there is a very big word when it comes to innovation, where you're trying to, in fact, most of the large companies always, the publicly listed companies, they always suffer because they are riding a tiger. They cannot course correct. So it's always a challenge to innovate.
That is true. That's the innovator's dilemma. That's for any big company, right? I worked in eBay on the mobile side. Mobile was growing and making $24 billion. But when I was responsible for it, it was $24 billion about 2 years back. And but the main bread and butter was desktop. So there was, a big part of the company which was not innovating, and they were push and pull. That happens in any big company. But you've seen that from the Tata Group, and that motivated you to go seed innovation in Bangalore to help. Why in IoT space?
No, I saw there is a big trend. All large companies, I'm not saying just Tata Group, there are several other large companies who are trying to innovate, trying to do something new, and trying to find the next big opportunity or business line. So I got in touch with Ford Motors, Shanghai, who were trying to reach out to the Indian startup community. At the same time, I started, a few discussions with Bay Area-based, few companies based out of Bay Area who are looking at reaching out to the Indian startups. So then I slowly started working with several other large companies on their corporate innovation drive. At the same time, I started.
Sorry, so when you say you worked on the corporate innovation drive, what did you do for them?
So all these large companies are looking at open innovation. They are trying to scout startups who can solve their internal solution challenges, right? Be it finding something in the Internet of Things space or augmented reality, robotics. So invariably, most of the innovation was oriented towards Internet of Things or hardware, and now recently the blockchain. So so then we made a conscious decision that instead of working with generic startups who are building websites to mobile apps and SaaS products, we decided to just focus on hardware. Incidentally, my partners and our team, all of us have in the past worked in hardware space, and
so you come from a hardware space, so you can bring that experience, and you decided to bridge the gap between the big companies where we're trying to do innovation, but we're not connecting with the startups innovating. Yes. So was it just a question of capital? I mean, is there more to accelerating growth for the startups?
So another trend we saw was, hardware is tough. Software is easy. And also hardware is really tough because you need to work with the ecosystem if you're trying to build a hardware-oriented product. So just a hardware doesn't make sense. You need to build data science and machine learning and artificial intelligence around it. You need to have a middleware and also user interface app to go along.
So stop 1 second, and we'll get back to that topic, right? Because you've been in hardware space, you know that well, and I come from software. And when I look at IoT, I went through this exercise of building, kits and takes an idea and just building prototypes. So I've gone through this exercise with my students at Stanford recently, where I put them through the exercise of taking their ideas and building out a prototype and then building out a business plan from there. But the prototype does not become the business, even if they build out the best of business plans, right? It's something from taking the bigger board, shrinking it down into a smaller design, and then manufacturing it, building test capabilities on it, and then there's some magic to get some mass production, right? So
exactly.
That piece of cake for you, but help us understand. When you said ecosystem, I thought you were referring to the hardware pipeline of the ecosystem, and you're talking about the software and the data and the cloud stack up there. So help us understand the ecosystem.
Okay. So hardware cannot exist in isolation. You need to get everybody, every hardware solution needs to have everything converging because ultimately the consumer be it enterprise or even a consumer, would need an application or an interface to work with the hardware, even if it's an electronics device, right? So you need to work with the ecosystem, the whole hardware ecosystem, as well as the software ecosystem, if you're building something having a hardware interface. So, so in that context, hardware itself is so hard because you have to source components, and then you have the designs to be done. You depend on the factories, you depend on the assembly, the PCB assembly, and then what you're talking about, getting some boards and building prototypes. I'm sure they're not even prototypes. They must be engineering samples with all the web hanging around, with development kits from a few of the companies, the chip companies, be it Intel, MediaTek, whatever. So that's the kind of that's more what the hobbyists or the DIY community is building. The maker community is building across the world, even in India. Slowly, the maker movement is taking good momentum, and we see several universities and even tier 2 city universities starting to develop things using the standard development kits from the chip companies. So when they come to us, several every day there are at least 10 companies who come to us, 10 enthusiastic bunch of hackers and geeks come to us with all these wires and boards and everything, and you ask them what you're trying to build. It's a wearable or a ring, and then it's this big. So most of the the DIY community who are building things, it's not really consumerized. There's no user experience taken into account, and the form factor not taken into account. So there's a long journey for these guys to navigate, and even in doing so, then you have to interact with the component companies, the design companies, the factories, and the timelines and deliverables, and then you need capital for all this.
So do you take on companies? So you actually take on companies which are in that stage where they've not even decided on the form factor? Because I'm involved in a couple companies as an advisor where they have the most amazing idea that I would bet on, but it's not yet baked. And then figuring out what the customer wants, who exactly is the customer, and then for hardware design, what form factor is it going to take? What shape is this going to take? Is it going to be a wearable? Is it going to be a patch? Or is it going to be a clip it's going to attach somewhere? I mean, even building out those mocks and going back to the customers and the channel is something, right? I mean, I think I could do a topic on that by itself. Are you saying that you take on companies in that stage when they say a ring, they're actually bringing a MediaTek board, or are they bringing you a 3D printer manufactured ring to you? I mean, what stage do you take them on?
See, in India, again, the ecosystem is not as mature, right? So even the digital revolution, you just, in the fag end of a digital revolution where, people have started using apps. The people are using mobile phones for various things. So now, using a cool consumer electronics is still not, taken good acceptance in the Indian market. We don't have a good early adopter community like the ones you find in the Western, the European market or the US market. There is fair amount of products coming out of the Asian market, especially China, which is churning out products. But Indian ecosystem, Indian market has always been a consumer market. So not much has been produced here. And there's a huge government push to make sure that India starts producing and building things. Electronics is the second largest import into India. And we see a lot of numbers floating around about IoT and how many devices, across the world and stuff like that. And there is all these devices communicating. And it's not rocket science, right? So it's pretty simple. So we've seen 7th or 8th device with internet, and we will further see more devices with internet. That's it. So I think so there is an opportunity for the Indian digital startups ecosystem to evolve and get the hardware on. And basically, it's not hardware. It's just ensure that you have more consumer touch points using different devices that consumers can get that get in the vicinity of customer.
This is fantastic. So your revvx is the hardware accelerator, right? Your hardware accelerator. So you take in companies, and 10 of them are knocking your door per day, and so you're going to get 3,000 something per year, and you filter. And how many do you take? What is, do you have a fund that goes with it? Where's the cost structure of this business of yours?
See, we are a young accelerator. We've been running this company for 3 years. As I said earlier, we were working with generic startups. We were working with apps. At the same time, we were working with large companies on their corporate innovation. So starting mid last year, that is 2015, we started this first batch of hardware accelerator. We took 6 startups, and as we speak, we finished one batch. We're on to the next batch, and we are now taking around 12 startups in the next batch. So when we started with the intention to work with very mature companies whom we can take into manufacturing. We have partnerships in China, and we have partnerships in Taiwan.
So you go wherever it's cost effective. It's not manufactured in India.
It's a global game, right? So even US companies do not manufacture in US. So it's a global. China is a global factory. So
your motivation is not to create jobs in India, but to create in India as businesses that would innovate and then go wherever the market is.
Yeah, the first objective is to solve Indian challenges, because the kind of problems, the kind of startups that we are working with, no Western startup would touch those challenges or problems, and these problems don't even exist.
For example, you have 6 of them that have already graduated through your first phase, right? And then you're taking on 12. So anything that's public enough that you can.
I'm coming watching cricket match. There was a World Cup match, and the entire country, you go to
I saw
the streets are very busy, and today I could come home within 5 minutes. Everybody is glued to the television, and they've been watching the cricket match. So cricket is such a big craze in this part of the world, and not many solutions are there for cricket, especially connected devices and gadgets for cricket. So one of our
wearable? Do you have a wearable that would track, batting and bowling?
The wearable is something, a smart cricket ball and a cricket bat. So stuff like that. So this is something would work on, because this is very local challenge, local problem, local sport. At least in this part of the world. So
yes, you could take it to South Africa and West Indies and UK maybe.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, yes, there are challenges that are very local, and our first priority is to just solve them. So you can go manufacture wherever you want, wherever it is convenient, be it China, Taiwan, if it's possible, even Russia or US. But we are trying to build, solve Indian challenges. The next step would be to see if these can be, graduated into the other markets, other emerging markets like be it Africa, Indonesia, or even China. Or if there is a product market fit in the Western, in the European or the US market, then it's a bonus.
So we have, I think, a couple more minutes. So I think we'll have to do a separate show and hear from you about South Africa. Hopefully I'll get somebody from South Africa to talk to me about the scene there. So we've got 2 more minutes. So tell me a little bit more. I mean, I'm very fascinated at how you're creating the ecosystem. I like people like you who inspire me because you create the ecosystem. You travel the world. You have this awesome resume, but you're going ahead with taking a risk and building out something from scratch, right? And it's not just yet another software startup, which is easier to do, right? So do you have any closing thoughts on where you see this market going, or people like you who are watching this from anywhere else in the world? I know I've been to Izmir and Barcelona. There are people like you trying to build local talent.
So we believe that the hardware ecosystem needs to work with the rest of the world. So we are working with everybody in be it China, even designers from Poland to German accelerators and various other accelerators across the world. We've been working with universities, Singaporean University and even other universities where we help them, with IoT certifications and learning. At the same time, work with the hackers, hacker movement, maker movement, build things. So the market is huge here. So we are sort of a channel for even the other startups across the world to explore Indian market. So we are like a hardware think tank and a channel for even tapping the Indian consumer market.
So anybody who's trying to tap the consumer market in India, can obviously think in this startup accelerator that you're working, revvx, revvx is their site. In there, you mentioned the whole ecosystem. So anybody else watching this from Poland or Russia or Minnesota, anywhere, who has a piece that they can build out, and partner with you, shipping you because you're going to provide the best of breed from your.
Sure. See, in our current batch, we had one startup from Hong Kong, one from Singapore, and one from Croatia. So the other three were all Indian. So we had 6 startups. They had a hybrid team, few of them sitting out of Russia, Croatia, and few in South India. So we are open to working with startups.
Startups which were outside of India. I somehow thought you were taking startups from India, and your supply chain and partnership was global. My bad. So how do you have 12 more startups you're taking on? So anybody watching this can check
as long as the problems that these startups are solving are very local,
yes,
we're working with them. And then we look at helping them build it, connecting dots anywhere in any part of the world. So we have several partnerships already with many other companies, not just the chip companies, but also the design houses and factories and distributors, both and retailers and wholesalers in India and Asia. So we are trying to build a channel for the startups here, so that then they can navigate the hardware journey a little more smoother. And we are also trying to set up a fund for specifically for hardware, because not many investors are open to investing in hardware startups, at least in India.
This is fantastic. Do you know other startups who are accelerators, who are hardware accelerators in the globe? I asked this specifically for one of my students. Was asking me, give me hardware accelerators in Silicon Valley, and I can name one. And when I asked around, I could find startup accelerators, which is all software, or there were few which were very focused on healthcare or specifically on a vertical, right, on insurance. I could find accelerator for insurance. That's big business here, insurance and IoT. But I couldn't find one for hardware only, generic.
Quite a few hardware accelerators are there. PCH is one. Highway 1 is one very popular accelerator. Then there's Hacks in China, Lemnos Lab, and several other accelerators working on hardware. Then there is SOS, Bolt also, which has Dragon Innovation and stuff. So a few companies are work more like a consulting firm where they take a commission. They help these companies with crowdfunding. If you want to do a campaign on Kickstarter or Indiegogo,
Yeah.
they are sort of a certifying agency, so that your backers on Indiegogo or Kickstarter at least are more confident investing in you. In India, the challenge has been, Indiegogo obviously is open for Indian startups. Few of the Indian startups have raised money. One of our Accelerator startup has raised money on Indiegogo and is now trying to pivot and graduate into a bigger use case. So at revvx Hardware Accelerator, we have 3 tracks. So initially we thought we will do manufacturing, but look, the kind of startups or the guys who came to us, we realized that there needs to be another track. So we do a prototype track where we take these engineering samples companies into prototype. So what you're talking, your students coming with all these big boards, we help them reach a prototype. The other track is the manufacturing track where we help them scale through production. Then we have an investment and a distribution track where we help them get into the retail channels and both B2B and B2C. We also have them raise money. So we have 3 tracks, and we take 6 startups every 6 months. So it's been a very fascinating journey so far, and I'm glad to know that you're working to support the IoT space, and I went through your videos, very nice and informative. So look forward to help the so I see you connecting many people who are already making progress in this space, and look forward to collaborate with anybody who
Thank
need
you.
our service.
So I think the show, I would give credit to people like you who bring in awesome content. We don't market anything. We don't, promote any one company or brand, or we don't even bash one company or brand. It's all about content, right? I mean, on a specific area. So you educated us about Hardware Accelerator, and even, what does it take to build out from a hardware into a scalable business. And then you told us a little bit about the Indian market, and, I love your passion for it, right? I find that I travel around the globe. I've been to Barcelona, I've been to Turkey and Amsterdam, and I'm part of this IoT Council Europe, which is full of smart think tank people covering every facet of IoT. I try to make that connection. For me, I get very attracted to chaos, and I go like, this should be simplified. And then people like you who are building out the ecosystem in different regions inspire me, as I said earlier. So now when I'm hearing from you, one, I want an action item that we will go back and maybe post on the comment or do a blog around it, and give this list of Hardware Accelerator for the people like my student who's looking for hardware accelerators, right? And that we will post in the comment, even on Google Plus and on YouTube. Other is, I'm just thinking of other people who are aspiring to build such ecosystems in different parts of the globe. Maybe I would connect you to a few people who might be leveraging your experience.
Very happy because as we speak, we are trying to set up for someone else. So we are setting up a Hardware Accelerator in Singapore, and also we will be supporting a few initiatives, and even virtually supporting building products on prototypes and holding startups, early stage startups through prototyping stage, and also connecting them with our ecosystem. So always happy to work with people.
This is fantastic. That's all the time we have today. Thank you so much. I'm sure we'll be talking to you again. I want to hear about the South African experience, and hopefully, you will come back and show us your startups. One of the things, you've been very humble, not to kind of brag about any of the startups or throw any names or anything. So I would like to see them at work. So maybe you can bring few of them and we can see their work.
In a couple of next month is our demo day, and we are open to discussing getting all the startups come and display what they have done. Probably in the next call we will get everybody and make them talk to you.
Sounds good. Awesome. Thank you, Avinash. Thank you, everybody. And I will see you next week.
Thank you
Bye.
so much. Sudha, bye.